Morning friends, Ben back again, and that is Balaji. Balaji is back so soon. I mean, nothing like a problem or an issue that I need to address or fix, but he is just being a little proactive, and he's gotten himself the Art of Motorcycles nylon cap, which will sit somewhere here. And of course, the factory provides a kind of a waterproof cap for the steering stem head bearings, but Art of Motorcycles nylon cap seems to be doing the rounds. It's doing a lot of good. There's plenty of good reviews on this one product online, and so we're just going to be swapping that with this. Not much of a job. All you need to do is loosen these bolts on both the sides. Once you have loosened all of that, the fork assembly slides down a bit, and afterwards what you do is you loosen the lock nut. You completely remove the lock nut. You kind of tap the triple clamp out, and you get your handlebar out. After that, what you do is you kind of remove the adjusting nuts, tapping with a screwdriver and a hammer, and you pull this cap out. Put this back in, put the adjuster nut, put the lock nut back on after you put in the triple clamp, and shove the forks in, because now I believe I'm looking at something like at least 2 to 3 mm height gain with this. So when that happens, your forks will slide down. For you to have the forks come back to the same level, you will have to loosen the forks and let the forks slide to the bottom. So once the job is done, I mean, I'll definitely run you through each step, but just giving you a heads up on what needs to be done. Now I think I'll hand over the camera to Balaji, and the rest of the video, whatever goes wrong, it's him to be blamed, not me. 6mm Allen key. This is my breaker bar. Just loosening it, not removing it completely. You have to be very careful with these bolts, because there is red Loctite in here, and that stuff kind of gets hard over time, and you're asking for trouble if you try and manhandle these bolts. Don't do that. Do it only if these bolts are coming loose on their own. So when you have a bolt which doesn't budge, you can tighten it slightly and then try and loosen it. That way you'll flex the bolt in the right direction. I mean, you'll start flexing the bolt in a way where the bolt will give in. Same on the top. These two bolts. To be very careful not to damage the paintwork. Just tightening it a bit, and then going ahead and trying and loosening it. That way things work. So if these tips come in handy, I mean, the only intention is to share these tips so that you guys benefit from the deal. A 30mm open end spanner, and on the other side you have a ring. Thank God, was able to pull it out without really trying to pry out the handlebar. And once you have that out, see, I have handlebar rises on, so it's a pretty easy job to get rid of this. I mean, I usually use a ring to go in and kind of get rid of this, but with the stock handlebar setup, the head of the bolt and the bottom of the handlebar, there's not much of a clearance there. You'll have to just pry it out a bit, you know, manhandle it, pull the head of the bolt out or the locking nut out. Now what you do is you gently try and so what I do is I'm trying to push the forks down and I'm trying to lift this up. There you go. As simple as that. The next job is to focus. The next job is to remove the adjusting nut and pull out the nylon cap, swap with the Art of Motorcycles nylon cap, and the job's done. You already have enough grease in the system, so I'm not going to be playing around with a lot of grease. It's a brand new motorcycle. 1600 kilometers is all that is done, and so I don't really need to go in with a lot of grease. The grease is going to be intact. The only job that is to be done is to swap this factory water cap to Art of Motorcycles nylon water cap. So yeah, I don't really have the C tool with me, with which you can kind of remove the adjusting nut very easily. So I'm going to be using the old school conventional method of using a flathead screwdriver and a combination of a screwdriver and a spanner and a hammer. From my experience, that wasn't tight enough. So like I said, there's truckloads of grease already in the system. This is waterproof grease. Yep, this is lithium based waterproof grease, and that's going to stay like that forever. That's the best part of waterproof grease. It doesn't change properties that soon. You're looking at 10-15,000 kilometers and the grease will still look like that. The bearing is intact. Everything looks super clean and super neat. All I need to do is just swap this. And see, it's not that, you know, Royal Enfield waterproof caps have a problem. They have a metal base. This is a metal base and molded rubber. So don't really know if this is going to make all the difference in the world. But yes, there are plenty of good I still haven't done it. I still choose to go with the factory water cap. I haven't moved to a Art of Motorcycles nylon cap, though I've had my friends tell me good things about it. It's because I've never really gone in with, you know, pressure wash right around this area. Been very careful to only wash my lower half of the motorcycle and never the upper half. The upper half is my doing. I take care and maintain my motorcycle, so I've never really bothered to, you know, kind of swap these caps. But yep, these things have a lot going in favor and don't really have a problem putting it there for Balaji. A wider base, wider platform by about 2 millimeters. The inner dia seems to be the same. This whole thing is plastic, some kind of plastic, and doesn't flex. Whereas I can flex the sides of this. So it is basically the whole thing is rubber, but the whole thing is metal with a rubber coating on the sides, whereas the entire thing is plastic. So at the most what you're looking at if things go wrong is that this thing will crack, may crack. I'm not sure if this will develop a crack or break, but none of my friends who run this have had issues with their caps. no cracks, no nothing. They've all only been saying good things about it. But yeah, metal body versus plastic body. So yep, let's see if this goes in as a strap. Yes, it's like that. And there is a bit of a sideways movement, whereas we can look at this cap, absolutely no movement. So it's slightly bigger. This hole seems to be slightly bigger, and that is why I have that movement. But that being said, water that gets into metal has a tendency to corrode metal and then slowly seep in. Whereas when I put this on and I tighten my adjuster nut, the seal between these two mating surfaces is going to be waterproof. I believe it's going to be waterproof. Whereas no amount of torque can make metal to metal waterproof. Just saying, just a thought. Wipe this clean and so now that you have the adjusting nut back on, what you need to do is gently slide the upper triple clamp, and if you watch, I can lower the bike, I can increase the height of the bike. I kind of get my upper triple clamp to mate to the surface of my forks, the top caps, the fork caps and my upper triple clamp should be flush. They should be, you should not have this or this. Keep it in a position where they are flush, they sit flush. And then now what you can do is you can go ahead and tighten these two bolts on the top, just so that the upper triple clamp holds on to the forks. Put the lock nut back on. The lock nut goes on with a lot of difficulty. It's because of lack of clearance here. So if you don't know what you're doing, the best thing that you should do is you should remove these bolts, pull the handlebar out, and then it's a piece of cake to go ahead and put the lock nut back on. So once the lock nut is back on, I kind of cranked it nice and tight, and I'm trying to look for free play on my handlebar, and it just seems one tiny bit tight, just a tad tight. So what I'll do now is loosen the lock nut, loosen my adjuster nut by about half a turn or 1/4 of a turn, and then tighten the lock nut back on. That ought to solve the problems. Then again, this is not a one-stop fix. Balaji will have to go ride this bike enough to Balaji will have to go ride the bike for about a day or two to understand how much is how good as far as the the tightness or the looseness of the steering stem bearings with the adjusting nut. So the adjusting nut and getting and nailing it down takes multiple attempts, a lot of trial and error. He will have to be on the roads again and again, trying to sense if all is well and make adjustments, necessary adjustments. Only then you can call it quits. This is not a one-stop fix. Go get things done, get the adjusting nut done and be done with it. Do it 3-4 times until you can nail it down to a very smooth moving handlebar and no clunking when you hit potholes or bumps. So எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் எனக்கு இது பிடிக்கும், இந்த செட்டப் பிடிக்கும். இப்போது ஆனால் விழலை பார்த்தீங்களா?
ஓகே
தெரியுதா?
ஓகே ஃபைன்.
எங்கேயுமே விழலை.
இப்போ நீங்கள் ரொம்ப லூஸாக இருக்கு அந்த மாதிரி
எனக்கு ரொம்ப லூஸாக இருக்கிறது பிடிக்காது.
ஓகே.
ரொம்ப டைட்டாக இருந்தால் பெரிய பிரச்சனை, ரொம்ப லூஸாக இருந்தால் கொஞ்சம் நாளில் பிரச்சனை, மீடியம் டைட்டாக இருந்தால் ஓடும். Steering is one tad bit more stiff, and it is just amazing to ride the new 2021. This is a very tight bike, unlike the BS4. The BS4 is a bit loose, and I've always had problems with the way the motorcycle felt a little, how do you say, it felt more like components put together a little too casually, and I had to get everything fixed myself. I had to kind of make the whole bike into one complete unit, one cohesive unit. Whereas with the 2021, what I like is just a tweak to the steering stem adjuster, and the inputs, the feedback that I receive from my front end, the forks and the tires is just impeccable. Love the feedback that this motorcycle offers. Don't really know if it is Balaji's motorcycle or the 2021 as a whole that has such wonderful feedback, but love the motorcycle for what it is. And so now what we'll do is we'll send Balaji off. So Balaji, any final words on today's exercise?
Definitely give it a try தான்.
Okay.
ட்ரை பண்ணி பார்க்கலாம்.
Okay.
பாசிட்டிவான ஃபீட்பேக்ஸ் தான் இருக்குது.
Okay. Okay.
So just we will see how it works.
Okay. Okay.
Then we will get back to you.
Okay, so I just had a test ride. Balaji is going to be taking this bike off now. 2-3 days later, I will receive some feedback from him, and we'll see if there needs to be some minor tweaks and adjustments that need to be made to the motorcycle. But apart from that, all's well that ends well. And this is Ben signing out for now. Ciao.